my name's Elijah Wells and today's review is Julius Onan's new movie, Captain America: Brave New World. The film follows Sam Wilson, who's played by Anthony Mackie, who essentially now assumes the role of Captain America. But after a really nasty skirmish at the White House with the president, and of course he discovers a really elaborate plot that takes place all around the world. That essentially undermines the presidency as well of the presidency's peace treaty he's trying to sign. And of course, Sam Wilson has to see what's going on with the conspiracy to essentially embarrass the president in front of everyone while the peace treaty goes down to get all the this new metal that comes from the frozen statue that almost emerged out of the earth from internals. So that's the story. The fourth feature film from the Captain America series, and of course another of the ongoing Marvel Cinematic Universe, of course being the first Captain America film for 9 years after the Civil War film back in 2016, and of course this is also a continuation of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which again shows the very big and very vast and always ever-growing strength of the MCU, particularly now with Captain America, who's gone on for somewhat of a changeover, particularly when Chris Evans essentially stepped down from the role after Endgame. The mantle was of course being given to Anthony Mackie, who was Falcon for a very long time, and of course the movie has been in some sort of delay and on a lot of developments, not just to reshoots and numerous rewrites and strikes and COVID, and of course there was a Falcon Winter Soldier, which essentially sets up most of the events of this film. But however, Marvel as of lately has a notoriously inconsistent form. Even though we've gone into this trap of, oh, Marvel are so back, oh, Marvel are so done. So, as in essentially flip-flops between the two. And particularly, it's just the really inconsistent quality of these movies at this moment. Like, I think it all started down when The Eternals was the first Marvel film to get a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, and unfortunately we got films following it such as Thor: Love and Thunder, which didn't really please anyone, and there was Ant-Man and the Wasp v Quantumania, which in my opinion is probably the worst Marvel film they've made so far in this canon. But of course, after last year, where they essentially had a somewhat of a semi-break with Deadpool vs. Wolverine, which was a gigantic success in the box office and an all-round crowd pleaser, so Marvel and the MCU are back on full string for this year, not just with this Captain America movie, and of course there's Fantastic Four that's coming out, and of course there's Thunderbolts, and of course a slew of ongoing Disney Plus series. And of course the problems do go ahead in this film, unfortunately, because, what to say, even though I am very well aware that the movie does tie in with Falcon and Winter Soldier, and of course I haven't actually seen this series, so I'm basically the MCU fan who doesn't exactly bother to watch the series, just because it, of course, takes a lot of time. So, without further ado, well, this film was a right old mess. Like, oh boy, just where do I begin with this one? Like, this is going to be quite a lot to dissect, so let's break down the issues one by one, essentially. As with something like Doctor Strange or the Marvels films, which came out years prior, at least with these two movies, they don't overhaul you with all the dumps that happened with Disney Plus, as in, like, at least they ease you in slightly without completely bogging you down. What all went down in the series. With this one, I feel like I'm just so lost with this movie. Like, how did the new Falcon or Joaquin Torres being betrayed by Danny Ramirez, like, where did he come from? Like, he somewhat came out of nowhere with the opening scene, and of course there's Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley, who of course is a major part of the Winter Soldier and Falcon series, as he's essentially a Korean War veteran who's been experimented on and imprisoned, and does go into a lot deeper into that in the series apparently. But in the film, he's basically a gym bro who tried to shoot a president who was mind controlled and then tried to shoot president, as in, I feel like he's suddenly becoming, I feel like my first impression is the Like, he's the overly muscular comic relief who just comes off as too tragic. Like, okay, he's the gym bro, I guess, now? Like, I'm just so lost in this movie. Like, I feel like I feel like I should have just watched the entire series beforehand because, okay, this was not. It just slaps you like right in the face. Like, unlike again with like Marvels or Doctor Strange, where at least it does ease you in and just put you in the shallow end of the pool, while this one just dunks you at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. And of course, the movie essentially revolves around the diplomatic falling out of the Celestial Island, as it's so called, after it emerged out of the Internals movie, as in this big, almost godlike statue just got frozen in the middle of the Indian Ocean and just peeks his head out and arm out like that, like peeking out of the ocean. And only 4 years later, it's now getting acknowledgement from this. Like, dude, like, if something like emerged out of the ocean in that size, I think people will be scrambling all over it, like, from day one. Like I feel like it took in like 4 years and like a dozen like series and films, and only now you're acknowledging it. Seems a little bit suspicious. I'm not being all Alex Jones or anything like that, or someone that still uses Twitter nowadays, but it does beg the question, like, what took so long for everyone to re-acknowledge the Eternals' existence? And of course, there's the brief cameo of Bucky, played by, of course, Sebastian Stan, who around halfway into the film says, "Oh yeah, I'm running for Congress." Like, okay, I'm taken back by this. Apparently, this is again to set up Thunderbolts, which is the next Marvel movie. But okay, that just came right out the blue. Like, I think things that could like come right out of blue, it's just as believable as saying, I don't know, like Tyler the Creator running for president. Like, it's just that plausible. Like, okay, that's okay. First, like, that came out of blue, but second, like, are you that politically qualified for this? Like, there's just so many questions run through my head. Like, what? Why? Who? What? Where? Do what? And the story of this film, we'll just say it's essentially more of a riff back to the days of Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Again, it's a brilliant movie, being the first of many of the Marvel films directed by the Russo brothers. Again, why I bring this up? Because the two movies, being Brave New World and Winter Soldier, almost have nearly an identical storyline. Come to think of it, just on sole purpose that it's basically about more of an espionage-leaning movie about the American government being compromised from within. And of course, Captain America is caught right in the middle of it, and only has a limited amount of friends in his arsenal. And of course, he must wiggle his way through without getting caught. So, again, this sounds like a very, very similar premise already, which is already a very bad sign for a franchise that's now been going on for now nearly 20 years, which again makes me feel a little bit old as someone that watched the first Iron Man movie. But anywho, which I find a little bit surprising. I don't remember any Marvel films before this that do recycle the storylines to a great extent. But then this film, which is again not a good example it sets, but again it is a little bit surprising. But I think comparing the two movies, I prefer how Winter Soldier did it, just because it's pulled off a lot more convincingly. Because how the government gets compromised, it turns out Hydra was pretty much hiding in the shadows very easily for the past like 60 or 70 years, until they finally popped their heads up again. But for this one, it's about mind control, and your phone flashes or flickers, and the president's on little pills that that makes him more and more aggressive, and makes him more and more this. Like, I feel like they understand they have to do a storyline about a compromised government, but they don't know how to execute it without a secret Nazi-esque death cult just wiggling their way through the system until they had to pop up again. And this time it's feel like mind control. The president's on medication. Again, the characters in this movie are a mixed bag. Like, we have Joaquin Torres, played by Danny Ramirez, who takes on the role of Falcon. Again, I do definitely see some potential in this movie, but I feel like he does get shoehorned into the stereotype as this somewhat obnoxious loudmouth who does one-liners here and there, and somewhat disappears when the third act comes kicking in. But again, I believe there should be more to him, but I imagine there's going to be plenty of series and plenty of films to essentially stretch his character out, essentially, or develop it a little bit more, since he is somewhat a little bit more interesting. And we have Ruth Bat Sharon, sure if I mispronounced the name, played by, again, sure if I mispronounced her name, Shira Haas, who's basically an Israeli version of the Black Widow. Again, in the comics, she is a legitimate, again, a Black Widow in this movie. Again, even though this concept was a lot more explored in the Black Widow movie, I feel like, do we already have a successor of Black Widow being, I think Natasha's character, being Florence Pugh? Again, it feels a little bit weird just to throw it in, unless Florence Pugh's character is up to something really serious before Thunderbolts kicks in. But I feel like she adds not too much to his character either. Of course, yes, Black Widow, being Scarlett Johansson, is dead, and we're not sure what Florence Pugh was up to Thunderbolts. It just feels like a really weird addition to this film, which again is a bit weird. And again, Carl Lumbly, who's I feel like is just done really dirty in this movie, in my opinion. Oh yeah, I forgot. There's Sidewinder being portrayed by Cara Carrillo as Bazisto, who you may remember from stuff like Breaking Bad, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and Do the Right Thing. He gives out like a really strong, really good first impression. Then second one, it kind of just ends a little bit, like his second fight scene. And the third and final time we see him, he's just there to give a glorified exposition dump. Again, I feel like he's just written in or reshot in at the very last minute, either to just spice up the action a little bit, or just make the film a little bit longer. But again, it seems like his character, being Sidewinder, is who's the leader of the Serpent Society, who gives off a really strong, really good first impression with his first scene, or the first action scene, or the opening scene. Then second scene where he shots up Captain America's car and chases him to a car garage, which unfortunately ended a lot quicker than I wanted it to do. Then third time he's just there to give a glorified exposition dump, which is again really dirty. And we have Tim Blake Nelson, Samuel Starnes, who's just there, which is not all you want out of a villain who's just there, really. Oh look, I'm a brainiac, I control people's brainwaves. In reality, you're just there, really. I feel like if you get replaced by, I don't know, a packet of bacon, then the movie wouldn't be any different. And finally, we have Harrison Ford, who plays President Ross, or Red Hulk. Again, he was originally going to be played by William Hurt, but unfortunately he did pass away in 2022. So he's been replaced by Harrison Ford, who, again, is definitely probably one of the better performances in this movie. He is giving it all in this movie. He does give a really good performance. And particularly, there's a side plot where he's pretty much has a strange relationship with his daughter, which I do really like, and does follow through quite a bit, and does have a decent conclusion, which I do really like. And particularly his sequence where he does become the Red Hulk, which is again caused with his caused by his tampered medication, and of course his history of heart issues. Again, which I found somewhat surprising until Red Hulk was only there for 10 minutes or less than that, which again, of course they did build it up a little bit when there was some skirmish in the Indian Ocean with the Japanese army. When he goes to the corridor and crushes a pipe. I appreciate the build-up, but there's a lot of build-up, but it's only a not good enough payoff. I wish there could have been a lot more of the Red Hulk when he completely obliterates the White House and goes after Captain America. And also, the film's politics is somewhat thinly veiled in this movie, but in a direction I find somewhat really ambiguous. After the film ended, I did think to myself, is this movie about Trump? Of course the movie is about a president who's being controlled by by pretty much a behind-the-scenes entity, like let's say Donald Trump and Elon Musk. So somewhat plausible that it could be in that direction, as he's pretty much the Brainiac character, or sorry if I'm completely mess up his name, but Samuel is pretty much pulling the strings of President Ross. Then could be that, like Elon Musk is doing for Donald Trump. But I also did think of another thing. Is this about Biden? Like, okay, the movie is about the really bad world image that America has, as in foreign policy, particularly under Joe Biden after the Ukraine war thing, the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan, the Israel-Gaza thing. Like, is it about that? Like, again, it's basically the entire film is about the president trying to get India, France, and Japan under his wing to form a peace treaty to pretty much agree over Celestial Islands. Again, I feel like it could be about Joe Biden, but however, I feel like the movie doesn't go far enough to take a specific stance in this movie. Like, it doesn't want to anger Republicans because Disney has now been criticized as being a woke factory, or Democrats for some fractions of the Democrat Party for being either pro-Israeli, or of course being how they handle strikes with the writers and actors. Like, it tries to take the most apolitical road possible, to the point that we don't know what the politics of this movie is. It's unlike Civil War, where you have to leave it up to your imagination of how the war started and what do the fractions stand for, and what else of the world building was left out of sight or out of mind. But in this movie, it did leave some mouth chunks of what the movie is trying to aim for, but it doesn't know what it's really going to stand for in this movie. Unlike Civil War, the movie with Kirsten Dunst in this movie being directed by Alex Garland, the one I was talking about earlier on, where in this film, I think I understand now, it says that essentially it's basically on the point of view of the journalist, as in it's where they are and how they get to the White House. But here, it's basically about the Captain America getting in midst of another skirmish upon another skirmish. Like, we don't know what the end game is like. As in the Civil War movie with Alex Garland is about ending up in the White House. This one, I have no idea what's the end game of this movie, to be honest. Well, Marvel is back, but not in the way you think. As in, we're back to something like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, The Marvels, or Thor: Love and Thunder. As in, it's basically the type of Marvel films where Marvel clearly just wants your money at this point. As in, the story is just so muddled and filled with so much massive gaps that you just kind of have to fill in your head if you haven't seen Falcon and Winter Soldier. And it's so muddled and so muddy, the storyline. I swear it's been put together by a 5-year-old. The characters were just feel boring, or just got cut off far too early, or something like that. The politics of the movie just comes off of far too vague for its own liking. And again, even though there's some really good performances and a couple of good story threads, it didn't just justify how extremely all over the place and just how really muddy and really mundane this film just comes off. Even though the movie just comes off it's just so pedestrian. It just doesn't feel urgent anymore. Like, the movie, even down to the fight scenes, it just feels it just feels boring. It just feels pretty mundane. It's just like watching Manchester United play, as in, you're expecting somewhat little at this point, not too much, nothing too crazy, but sometimes when they go low, they go low. To the point you can't speculate if they did it on purpose. Like, this movie has had one too many rewrites, one too many reshoots, to the point this cannot be the version that Julius Onman wanted to envision from day one. Like, this movie has 5 people working on the script. Like, I don't think any of them had to have unanimously agreed with the decision in this movie. Like, this movie is just pretty uneven at best. So for Captain America: Brave New World, I'm feeling a 5 out of 10 on this one. Ugh. So, what do you think of Captain America: Brave New World? Let me know in the comments down below. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Letterboxd and Blue Sky and Threads. This is Elijah Rolls, and bye.